Good afternoon, all of you. Good afternoon, all of you. I want you to do business in Africa, and therefore I want you to listen to this. I want you to do business in Africa, and I want you to listen to this. When I was talking to Chairman Vimar Shah, who's my friend, and we call him an icon in Africa, yesterday and 2 weeks ago, he told me that there is a forum that we need to come and share. And therefore, yesterday, I was having meeting with my heads of state, President of Rwanda, President of Burundi, and President of South Sudan and Kenya. And it was a busy day, and therefore, when he called me in the evening, "Are you coming?" I was balancing, do I come? What do I do? But when I arrived this morning, I realized this was the best decision I made, maybe for this year. Thank you very much. My name is Peter Mathuki, the Secretary General of the East African Community. And for those who would want to know what is East African Community, East African Community is part of Africa. And therefore, I would want you to follow keenly when you talk of East African Community, what basically this means. The East African Community is basically this. We are talking of 8 countries in Africa. We are starting with the Republic of Burundi, DRC Congo, Republic of Kenya, Republic of Rwanda, Federal Republic of Somalia, South Sudan, Tanzania, and Uganda. And we are soon going to admit Ethiopia and Djibouti. And that will give East Africa a population of about 500 million people, and possibly a GDP of about 500 people. And therefore, that's why I'm here, to tell you the East African Community is the place to invest. And when you listen keenly, by the time I finish my presentation, you'll be able to realize where to invest, which sector, how to do it and when. And therefore, please, I invite you to listen to this presentation. The East African Community itself, when you talk of the East African Community, it is an idea of bringing the countries together of East Africa, largely to create one market where we can be able to sell goods within the same community, duty-free, because it's a customs union. We are a customs union from 2005. We are a common market, 2010. And now we are working on a common currency. Meaning that if you are an investor in any of those countries, let's say in Kenya or in Rwanda or in Tanzania, you'll be able to access free market in the entire population of close now to 350 million people, duty-free. And that's why we are saying is a customs union, meaning you should be able to move freely within the community and sell your goods. It is a common market because within the community, we don't need to use a passport. You simply need to have a national identification, and you're able to move freely within all those countries. It is true some countries may not have joined, but that is what we are working towards. And of course, we are working on a monetary union, meaning that you are going to have a common currency within that market. So that when you invest in any of those countries, you should be able to sell your goods. You don't have to carry any other currency. You simply carry the currency of East Africa. And therefore, we are working for a common currency. And of course, ultimately, a one state. So therefore, we are looking at bringing all these countries to become one state. And therefore, when you're talking, what is the vision? What is the motivation of bringing all this together? It is basically to widen, deepen economic, social, and cultural integration so that we improve the lives of the people. When I was listening to the previous speaker about the social impact he has made in creating dams and providing water, that is why I want to invite you to come to East Africa and to come to Africa and make that difference. And therefore, this afternoon, we are going to say, when we are talking of the 8 countries, when we are talking of 350 million people. We are talking of 350 billion GDP. We are talking of the landmass of East Africa is about 5 million square kilometers, spanning from the Indian Ocean all the way to the Atlantic, where the DRC is. The coastal line of now East Africa, spanning from the Somalia all the way down to Congo, that is about 5,000 kilometers, the coastal line. And therefore the impact of transport, movement of goods coming into East Africa and also going to out of Africa. But some of the key sectors, and this could be of interest to you, that are thriving in East Africa is agriculture. The environment and the weather is so conducive for agriculture. If you decide to invest in the value chain, the food value chain, or in agriculture, you'll be getting it right. Mining, the entire East Africa, DRC, Tanzania, Kenya, Uganda, we have minerals. In fact, when we were doing assessment, DRC alone, the value of the minerals that are not utilized in DRC, the value is 26 trillion US dollars, bigger than the economy of the United States. And therefore, this becomes an opportunity for you to come and say, I want to get into this sector, because you can go wrong. When you are talking of tourism, the tallest mountain in Africa is Mount Kilimanjaro, it's in Tanzania. If you want to come and invest in the cable cars that would take people from the city of Arusha all the way to the top of Mount Kilimanjaro, it is possible you invest and get your money. If you want to do that for Mount Kenya, you do the same. And therefore tourism, the big five, the safaris in Africa, you find them in East Africa. The ninth wonder, movement of the beasts from migration of the animals, you come and experience life in the month of July, August, and September. And those are some of the attractive sides of the tourism. You saw the other day the president of Tanzania, in fact, saying the Royal Tour, trying to promote East Africa post-COVID in terms of tourism destination. And therefore, we want to invite you. Manufacturing sector, which is also thriving because the conditions of investment are all right. And if you speak to Chairman Vimasha, who is here, himself is an icon in our continent, and we respect him so much. He will tell you he has gotten it right. And I'm sure he'll be one of your teachers to make you understand how to invest in East Africa. Technology is an emerging sector because of young population in East Africa. 75% of our population is young people. And therefore it becomes very easy to exploit this sector. And so is renewable energy, because it is naturally the climate provides for that. And therefore, the youthful population of East Africa and the middle class that is growing very fast, and the enabling consumer markets that we have in East Africa would be enough reasons for you to come and invest in East Africa. When you are talking of, look at this, the economic profile. When you are talking of Tanzania, Kenya, Uganda, Burundi, Rwanda, South Sudan, this is the trajectory, the economic happenings in the region. And therefore, this data is enough to tell you, please, there are huge opportunities in East Africa to invest in. When you talk of course, the issues of inflation post-COVID, managed because of the economic and business environment provided by all the countries, that gives you an idea. When you are talking of the several factors that contribute to economic growth in East Africa, that increased investments in infrastructure. Infrastructure is a big deal, because that is basically that is going to transform our region. And we are keen and inviting those interested to invest in this and work with governments to make sure that we transform our region. Regional integration by expanding the markets. Already we are expanding, and I've told you that in the next few years we are going to have the entire Horn of Africa part of East African community. And therefore, if you decide to invest in either in Ethiopia, in Kenya, in Tanzania, you'll be able to access the entire East African market duty-free. And therefore, that's why we are telling you, please come. Growth of the services sector increasing because of good education systems that we have, improvement in governance and business environments, that already becomes a big plus. And therefore, these elements are collectively fueling the economic growth in the East Africa. And therefore, the intra-trade within East Africa is rapidly increasing. And we are saying this because East Africa now working towards the African integration. African market, we are talking of 1.4 billion people in the entire Africa. We are talking of a collective GDP of 3.5 trillion US dollars. And of course, potentially going beyond even 50 if we is fully exploited. And this will be possible if we have the private sector, yourselves and investors, coming to invest in Africa, coming to invest in East Africa. When we are talking, why do you have to invest in East Africa? Because this is important. Why invest in East Africa? Of course, market potential. And we are saying, what we are saying is, East African community offers this kind of market, political stability in the region, investment incentives that are given by the other governments. The strategic location of East Africa, where it is the proximity to the global markets. From Africa, we simply cross Indian Ocean and we are in India. And therefore, it becomes very easy, therefore, to invest in Africa. The natural resources that I was talking about, they are here. And therefore, it becomes easy to come and say, we are ready with the arable land for farming, with huge land with mineral resources. It is you to choose the sector you'd want to invest in. And therefore, when you talk of policy reforms that we have, the skilled workforce, the public-private sector reforms, and therefore private sector becomes the center of our integration. If you talk to Chairman Vimal and other business people in East Africa, they tell you in their respective countries, they have quarterly engagements with the presidents so that you as private sector define how you'd want the business to be done in East Africa. Implementation of when you are talking of the customs union, we are talking of now the CET, which is the customs common external tariff, which is structured in a manner that 0% if, for example, you are producing from East Africa and therefore you do duty-free, or 10% if it's unfinished, 25% for finished, and 35% for finished goods. And that is to entice the local manufacturers in East Africa. And therefore, that is why we are saying East Africa is the place to invest if you want to put your money. And where do you invest? When you're talking where, which sectors? Again, we said infrastructure presents an opportunity for building roads and bridges. And I invite even the construction of dams and water. We need water in East Africa. I'll be discussing with Vimasha that how we should invest, how we should bring on board the previous speaker who eloquently discussed the social impact of what you do. And of course, energy, again, is where an area you can invest, particularly in the green sector. Technology is also expanding. About 80%, 90% of the population in Africa, in East Africa, have access to mobile phones, even in the villages. And we have this mobile money, mobile transfer, that you don't have to go to bank physically. Even when you are in East Africa, you can pay for your services from wherever you are. You can transact and get your money on your mobile phone from wherever you are, and you'll be able to do business. And that is happening in East Africa. And therefore, the connectivity and linkage between the communication sector and the banking sector. Healthcare, investing in healthcare, the growing population and opportunities in medical facilities and pharmaceuticals, we don't have enough, and therefore an important sector for you to invest. Agriculture, fertile land in East Africa, the 5,000 square kilometers. If you go to Eastern DRC, the Tiba, in Kenya, the climate in Tanzania and Uganda, Rwanda, you find the climate is right, Burundi, to invest. When you talk of things like coffee, the cocoa, all the value chains, the spices, the avocado, and other horticultural products, becomes very easy for you to put your money. And of course, again, manufacturing, tourism, and mining. These are the sectors that I'm saying becomes easy. And therefore, what is the future of East Africa when we come to business? What is the future? The emerging investment opportunities in East Africa, again, MSMEs to produce for export. Because when you are producing for export, you can't go wrong. We have the land, we have all the opportunities, so it becomes easy. Promote priority high-value chains, the preferential trade agreements. EAC, as we speak, the East African Community, is signing a trade agreement with UAE. Last month I was here meeting the minister in charge of trade in UAE and also the State Minister of Foreign Affairs to see how to sign a trade agreement between East Africa and the UAE. And also we are working the same with other parts of Asia. And therefore I think it becomes an opportunity to say, let's work together to see how we could promote. And then we have what we call the tripartite. It's the East African Community, SADC is the southern part, COMESA, SCFTA, that is African Continental Free Trade Area, and therefore becomes easy working all together to say, with these trade agreements, it becomes easy for you to access investment opportunities in South Africa. Enhance collection analysis and dissemination of trade information. If you want to get trade information in East Africa, that is an area we can partner in easily, and you'll be able to get that information. Renewable energy, the fintech, the e-commerce, the real estate, and consumer goods. These are areas that we are saying it becomes easy for you to invest in. And therefore, you want to do business in East Africa, you are most welcome. You discuss with me, because you don't have to, the 8 countries, when you talk to the Secretary General, you can be able to get access to doing business in any of those countries. So in the event you are planning to do business in any of those countries, you don't have now to spend money coming to East Africa. Speak with me, and I'll facilitate easily for you to do business in any of those countries in East Africa. And the systems are in place. And that's why we are saying when you are talking of doing business either in Kenya, in Tanzania, Rwanda, Burundi, or South Sudan, you don't have to know even anybody, because the environment and the business environment is correct. You go to Kigali, you arrive in the morning, you take your flight to Kigali in the morning, you register your business. By 1 o'clock, you have a company registered ready for doing business. If you want to do business in Kenya, you can register your business company using your mobile phone from wherever you are. By the time you arrive, your business is ready, company is ready to transact and do business. This is the total trade flows in how we did business with the rest of the world all the way. And this tells you that there's a lot of potential in terms of the imports and the exports, the total intra-EAC trade, the share of the intra-trade within the region. But also the export performance, how we did. If you go, I was impressed last week when I went to Abu Dhabi, and I go to the supermarkets and stores, and I find the horticulture and the flowers coming from Kenya in the supermarkets and shelves. So once you come and invest, obviously you know where to get your market. The intra-export performance, again, these are the figures. This is intra-EAC exports within East Africa. And therefore we are saying, once you come and invest in any of those countries, you get the right environment for you to export and sell anywhere within any of those countries, duty-free. And these are the trades. This is how it has been for all the countries. In case you'd want to make a choice where to invest, this gives you an idea of where you can invest. The overall performance of the EAC exports more than what it imports from within Africa. And that is why the East African Community is the most integrated regional economic bloc in Africa. And this is by the World Bank and the IMF. They say East Africa is the most integrated. Why? Because we are a customs union. We are a common market. when you are moving from one country to another, from Uganda to Kenya, you don't use a passport. You use your national identification. If you want to come to visit as a tourist to Kenya now, or Uganda or Rwanda, you need a single tourist visa. And you try this. And so we are working that for all the countries, so that you can just buy one visa and travel to all the countries in East Africa. And we are saying we are 8 countries. Somalia was the latest to join the East African community. They joined last year in December. And now the next one is Ethiopia and Djibouti. And we have the entire Horn of Africa fully integrated. In terms of African markets, we do business mainly with these countries. Of course, these countries and Kenya, Tanzania, and Uganda are the top sources of imports for the East Africa. But outside the bloc, we trade more with the Southern African countries. And South Africa is the biggest import market, followed by Egypt, Zambia, Zimbabwe, Eswatini, Mauritius. And Burkina Faso in the west, Gambia and Morocco are also important sources of our business in East Africa. Therefore, when you come and invest in East Africa, you will not regret. You'll be in the right place. You are going to have your money back. The Regional Orientation Index for Africa, again, the opportunities given by the African Continental Free Trade Area. Africa market is prime, not only for low technology, but for manufacturers. In fact, being now the youngest, I see the future, the next factory of the world is Africa. And of course, I say so because of the kind of the natural and mineral resources that we have, but also the manpower and also the need for technology. And therefore, the best way to accelerate economic diversification, expanding exports, and of course, further towards looking at the bigger market. So when you invest in all those countries in East Africa, you don't only sell or market the East African market, but we are talking of the entire African market. That is 1.4 billion people. Because that is why the African Continental Free Trade Area, working together with all regional economic blocs, we are making it easy for private sector. Our strength, the size of the opportunities, of course, the regional integration, and this was a strategic decision that was made by all the countries, saying that let us come together, let us collapse our countries and make them just one region. And therefore, that is why we are saying it is the opportunity. And that is why East Africa remains the most integrated. But also enhance export promotion strategies, because we are saying, now with the longest coastal line in Africa now, it becomes easy for us to export our goods across to that parts of the world, but also sustainable and inclusive trade that makes sure the trade and whatever we do is private sector driven. Private sector remains a very key pillar of how we do and transact business in East Africa. But also capacity, we are talking of the skills that exist in all the areas, and I think, and also export financing, access to affordable and appropriate export financing, and then public and private sector partnership, which needs, of course, this collaboration between. And also we are bringing academia because of research, academia, so that it becomes public, private, and also academia partnership, which we see is the next leverage to strengthening our regional integration. And then the market diversification, trade facilitation, developing efficient transport networks, and how I wish, and this is why we're inviting private sector. With now the market integration in Africa, it becomes easier to create a network connecting all these countries, and the transport system becomes easy, where you're able to connect Kinshasa in the Atlantic all the way to Nairobi in the Indian Ocean or Mombasa. And that's why we are saying it's very important that we work together to improve and invest in the networks of transportation. But also product development and value addition, again, is a huge opportunity as a community. So thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen, for listening. I am inviting you to come and invest Put your money to Africa, to East Africa, because that is the biggest opportunity. And when you look at the trajectory and the global dynamics, you find a lot of interest coming towards and creating partnership with Africa. I'm here available at your disposal so that we can partner and discuss how we can help you invest and put your business in any of those countries in East Africa. And I can guarantee, as the Secretary General of the East African Community, you'll get your money back. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Your Excellency, Peter Mathuki, for such a great presentation, very insightful. And I would just like to invite on stage Anish Jain and SB Jain to please pass on a token of appreciation to His Excellency. Can we have a big round of applause for His Excellency's contribution to the summit today?